Mina Irfan, the universe guru. Let's talk about it. Mina has come under a lot of attention that is not very positive. That's no surprise at this point, I think, to most people that are in that community. Some people will call it hot water. I'll just say it's not a pleasant look on her currently. While there are videos, and I think at this point all of you would know there's that subreddit, there are other people that are making videos or making comments elsewhere sharing positive experiences. The first thing I want to begin with is all of your experiences are valid. Whatever you experienced with her, whether it was positive or it was negative, that is your right to have that experience, and no one can take that from you. I was someone that had watched Mina for over the past several years, a few years if you would say. I at some point had a community of women as well, and of course in those communities we share insights, we share inspirations, and we share videos. Of course Mina came up as one person, and I would even recommend some of her videos and have conversations around her courses and pricing, among a number of other things. So to this day, it's not surprising if a lady still, which they are, writing to me something about Mina. So in that regard, what do I notice? I did notice a change prior to them moving into the mansion and after moving into the mansion. There was definitely a shift and a change. I would say her post-mansion days has content in there where if you're a lady that hasn't had a lot of standards, you haven't had boundaries, you haven't had a man pay for your date, actually ask you out on a date, you're the one initiating the date, being proactive, there's still content, I would say, prior to mansion days that would help someone or a young lady that hasn't had standards before. During that time, I did notice some things that was interesting, but she's not my savior, right? So I just kept it moving. I also give room for people not to be perfect. Take what resonates and leave the things that don't. One day I did reach out though, because I was going through a situation and I reached out for coaching services. I received an email back, which I still have, from the Universe Guru team is what it is addressed it is from, stating that if I wanted to do coaching services with her, a 1-hour call would be $999. For 5 sessions, $4,444, and there were a few other options. $1,000 for a 60-minute phone call was not in my budget. I don't even think that would be in my budget today. However, I opted not to speak with her. I spoke with someone else that was a coach. They had a degree, a bachelor's degree and master's degree in psychology, and they were a licensed therapist in their state. The rate for their call was somewhere between $400 and $500 for that hour. It was not for a therapy session. Obviously, you can use your insurance for therapy. It was a coaching session, and that was the cost. So, seeing the price difference, I had never run into a price that was that high. Even with someone that had a bachelor's and a master's in psychology, a licensed therapist, and having 10, 15 years in the space, still was not charging that much. So she's entitled to have her prices. I personally just was not going to buy into it. I ended up watching a lot of her YouTube content. Now, the things that started calling out to me in her previous videos One of the first things I remember standing out to me was when Irfan was in a video, and I think the purpose of having him in the video was him to say, yes, men need to pay the bills. As a woman that was in a relationship where I was more the masculine and he was more the feminine, and I also shot videos and content, it was giving me the same vibes where it looked like he was being told what to say. Is that what happened? I can't tell you that. But I can't help but to look at that video and feel like I think he's being told to say this. The camera is definitely not his thing. Like, it's not as comfortable for him as it is for her, and that's not a problem. That is when I first started realizing that there's a potential here that she's the masculine, he's the feminine. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you desire. The issue that's coming up, and what I would say is adding fire to the flame here, is that that's not the messaging people are receiving. There are also things that she would mention in her YouTube videos that I realized she was likely talking about herself, even if she did not say that. For example, in one video, she mentioned, well, if you make money and you want to hurry up and pay off the house faster than your husband is able to do it, you can just tell him, here's some extra money. We could just use this to help to pay off the house faster. That's not verbatim what she said, but it's something to that degree. And so, am I saying she did this? No. Is there a possibility? I do think so. In which that is likely something that she did. When she started making extra money, she started putting more money towards the house. And instead of saying that's what she did, she gave that as an example. The other thing that I had noticed, and I do think this was post-mansion days, was she was sitting in the car, I think in a brown outfit with sunglasses on, stating the different type of provider men that there are, and that she chose Irfan for a certain reason. However, to me, throughout her multitude of videos over all these years, and especially as we get into post-mansion days, it does appear that she would prefer a man that was heavier in his masculine energy that could provide the luxury lifestyle that she wants. And Irfan is not that way. She had stated previously that Irfan, well, I don't want to say that she stated this because it's a sentiment that I remember, so she may not have said it directly in these words, but what came off was the fact that he's a more simple man. He would have been happy with the house that they had before. She did say that he did not want to go for a higher position to make more money because he had the opportunity to, but he said he did not want to because then that would take him away from the family. When she said that, I knew right off the bat that, okay, he's not a heavy masculine energy man, because if he were, he would have continued to scale up versus I don't want to put in that extra amount of work for that position. Again, this is not a dig towards him, because based off of her words in her video, he was a high earner, over $100,000 a year. It sounds like with bonus and everything together, it could have been around $150,000 a year. Nothing wrong with that. The point is, he was comfortable settling at that point. He didn't need more than that. Mina obviously does. And she's probably realizing that she would have needed the millionaire man to be able to afford that lifestyle for her. Now, when it comes to her intensive, look, I'm telling you what I'm noticing. I cannot confirm or deny anything here, but just tell you what I've noticed, or the vibe or the energy that I'm picking up. When it comes to her intensive, that is when I also started realizing that she's definitely using her intensives with a business benefit, which there is nothing wrong with that. But basically those intensives are writing off the family vacation. So I noticed that the whole entire family would go based on the information that she shared in her own videos. At first I thought it was one, but then I realized the whole family is showing up to a lot of these. So she's using the intensives to write off family vacations. She's not doing something that business people don't do. They take advantage of business opportunities and tie in a vacation. So I can't knock her for doing that. However, it does seem that, again, if we're talking about having a heavy masculine energy man providing and things like that, with what Irfan is doing currently, traveling with her to go to the intensives and be around in that aspect, it's not giving masculine energy. It's not giving heavy masculine energy, the provider type masculine energy. He could, obviously, because he did. But I can tell you right now, I highly doubt, and I could be wrong, but I doubt that if Shira had an intensive, I could not see James leaving his job and following her around the world on intensives. He's still going to keep his job. He's still going to do his thing. Again, I'm not saying I'm accurate in saying that. I'm telling you the vibes that I'm picking up from this whole thing, especially because a lot of what I'm hearing everyone say right now are things that I got vibes from a long time ago. The last thing that I'll touch on would be the cease and desist letters. So it was discovered that there's a certain website that you can go to, and I forgot the term or the name of it, but basically you can identify who asks for something to be removed off of a certain site for copyright infringement. And at looking at that, there's a company, called Town, Cesar, something of that nature, that did the removal request. So that lets you know she hired this service to scour the internet to take all her stuff down that she did not post herself. Is there anything wrong with that? No, there's not. Now, where some people might find that interesting is the fact that this also would include if someone said something negative about her. Because there hasn't been a lot of reviews on her all these years, I do think that she was able to quiet people if they were not happy with her services. Am I accurate in saying that? I do not know. However, is that the vibe that I get? Yes. I think 3-4 years ago, when the other previous student of hers paid, $18,000 or so to have business coaching, and she left that video on YouTube. That was the only video at the time. And I think even that video got a cease and desist letter. And the issue that I'm seeing with that is people are allowed to have a negative opinion about you. People can say something negative about you if they choose to. That's called the freedom of speech. Otherwise, we're living in other type countries where you can't even speak against the government. But in the United States, you could talk bad about your president if you want to, and you would not receive a cease and desist letter. So the handling of that, I think, is not leaving a good taste in anyone's mouth. So in conclusion, it's really interesting for me to see how things are panning out right now, because I've had thoughts a long time ago. I have called certain things out to some of the women that I was in groups with. And again, not necessarily in a bad way, but just saying, hey, I want you to know that she has this content on YouTube. Of course, she has these courses, but I do think these courses are priced on the higher end, and you'll still be able to get what you need even if you don't go through this. So something is off right now. I can't tell you more of what that is. However, the vibe that I get right now is that things might not be looking as pretty as time continues on. It'll be interesting to see if we look back a few months from now, if I was accurate in that or not. And one last thing before I forget. Some people were questioning her revenue. For her to have the house that she has, you definitely have to have a certain amount in combined income and assets. When it comes to how much she was generating off of courses, of course, most of us are going to just go by what she says, in which I would think she's telling the truth with that. It was a brag for her. It was a flex for her. Is that a bad thing? No, make money. You can look on the Think Kifit did a blog interview with her. I'm going to assume that the number that they put in that article is a number that they fact checked, because Think Kifit is the website that she's doing her courses on. So it mentioned a 6-figure digit that she was doing per month at the time. You can Google it for yourself to see. All right. All that said, I think everyone is wise to make their own decision. Use your critical thinking skills, use your discernment on what you should be doing with anyone. It's not just her. If you're going to pay money for something, use your discernment. So on that note, as someone else sharing experience and stories and opinions, I think you all may be able to hear, or at least feel that, okay, someone else has had similar thoughts. Now again, whether you've had a positive experience or a negative experience, you're totally entitled to that. And at the end of the day, my biggest message would be, for whoever that you work with, have discernment. You want to obviously get reviews, ask around, do as much research as you can before you spend any type of money, especially money that's on the higher side for a particular service or product. So I send love and hugs to everyone. Whether you're feeling great throughout this process or you have not felt great throughout this process in terms of whatever type of connection you have had with her. And I wish you all the best.